Ooh, yeah, it's getting sexy in here. Putting on some slow music. Hey, welcome to the podcast. My name's Alan. I'm here with Sol.
Ooh, oh yeah. Hello.
And of course, we've got Calvin.
Hello, listener.
I think Alan and I were going for a kind of jazz club kind of vibe. Whereas
Oh, right. Oh.
Calvin went for the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter. What's it called?
I was trying to do my best Gina Gershon, but no, sadly not.
I also like that
Came out a bit Elizabeth Berkley.
Alan's idea of slow, sensual music is the girl from Ipanema.
That was just the first thing that came into my mind.
So you are listening to our annual Valentine's Day extravaganza, and that means we're going to be talking all about sex, baby.
Yeah, the problem is we always pick a film to talk about, and then we just end up talking about Sol's sex life. So prepare
Not
yourself for that.
exclusively my sex life. Highlights of past episodes include the time Alan hid in a cupboard with a raging erection because someone's ex-boyfriend came over to pick up some things.
Pretty sure that story's been exaggerated slightly in the retelling.
The time Calvin wore a saddle and let someone ride him around like a horse. You know, these... This is the sort of thing you can expect over the next hour or so of podcast.
The thing is, we've sort of all flipped roles these last few years, because I think when we started this, both myself and Alan were single bachelors, and Sol, you were the one in a relationship, and now it's sort of flipped. You are the single bachelor, so you're the one with all of the stories.
Sol has become single since our last sex episode, so that is, we're going to have some good tales to hear, I'm sure.
I mean, there's more. This was a problem last time round, that I'd sort of run out of material. And
he's been doing stuff just for the sake of this show.
I actually have. No, I genuinely have. I think I told you about one of them, Alan, when I was doing it, but it wasn't actually a very interesting story. When
you were doing it, you were calling Alan mid...
I think I messaged him as I was walking over. No, I was at the flat. And
you messaged me saying, "Why am I here? What am I doing?"
Yeah, because I didn't want to be there, because I kind of got... Right, we'll get into this later.
We'll have to, that's a little tease.
Yeah.
What did Sol do that was ridiculous?
The film we are covering, quote-unquote, this week is Showgirls. Classic Paul Verhoeven bit of... I don't know, what would you call it? Sleaze? Schlock?
Shit.
Exploitation?
Exploitation.
All of the above.
Well, it's a fascinating film, this, in so far as, historically, we started doing these Valentine specials because we covered 50 Shades of Grey, and that episode turned out so well. I think it is one of our finest episodes of all time. But, it went to a very blue place. We got talking about sex, obviously, But it went so well, we were like, right, we've got to cover all three of them. And then we did that, and we were just looking for any film with sex in it. And so we've thrown it up to our Patreon subscribers. And this year they selected Showgirls, which I am pleased about. Last time round, they picked a good, proper film to talk about, which was Eyes Wide Shut. And I think the idea was that we talk about, wank material, really. And I think Showgirls is back to that. It's akin to the, it's of the 90s, before people had ready access to internet pornography. And I think
it was a different world.
Yeah. But it's a fascinating film because people are very divided on it. If you spend any time on Letterboxd, just take a look at the distribution of ratings from 1 to 10 on there. It is absolute chaos. Normally when you look at a film's rating, it sort of peaks in the middle. It'll peak at 7 or 8 or 6 out of 10 and then kind of go down either side. No sort of pattern with Showgirls. There's people giving it 8 out of 10, there's people giving it 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It's crazy. So we might actually get some good discussion here.
I bet we don't.
Well, let's mix it up with a bit of sex as well. I've also asked our if you join our Patreon, one of our many other benefits is access to our Discord server. I just threw up before we started. I just threw up before we started recording a request.
Oh, he started
for some
purging
sex.
again, Calvin. If you believe it.
A request for some sex questions from our Discord members. So we've got a couple of those.
Sexy questions or sex
questions about sex.
Oh, that's not as fun.
Okay.
So I'm going to be chucking those in.
Well, is this an educational podcast now?
Well, it was last year. Bloody hell! It was all about like now, when you lose your virginity, go carefully and be kind. And
I don't think any
don't
of us
do
said
anything before you're ready.
Oh, yes, you're right. We did have that conversation. Yeah. Remember that.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some questions actually about straight people's sex after watching this film. So I guess we'll get into it as we go through in our discussion. I did want to ask though, right off the bat, is this the first time that all three of us are seeing this film?
I've seen it before. Yeah, I've definitely seen it before. I mean, long enough ago that I had to rewatch it.
Well, you're the right age for it to be sexy, and
Nah, I'm not. Nah.
well, I am. I'm the right age that I'd seen certain scenes from this film isolated from the film on dial-up internet, where you could download scenes from. Oh god, is it called Taking Lives with Angelina Jolie?
Oh yes.
Oh, it's a very good scene in that film.
Well, I only really know about this film from its reputation as being one of those so bad it's good kind of things. So I've definitely seen clips from it. Most of them censored in sort of like YouTube video reviews, just taking the mickey out of it kind of thing. But I'm surprised that we never sort of had like a group screening or something at university, because we did do, so bad they're good movies quite a bit, and this one never really came up.
We didn't want to hear Connor having a wank behind the city.
I don't think it's quite bad enough.
Well,
okay.
I don't think it's just bad. Yeah, it's not so bad it's good. It's just shit.
Well,
we're going to have an
all
interesting discussion then, because we've got already off the bat we've got 3 different takes on this.
No, Paul Verhoeven we've discussed before once, I believe, Alan, on the podcast. We did Starship Troopers, yeah. Now I would categorize myself as a big fan of Paul Verhoeven. And
in that case, I would categorize you as a tosser.
Well, I think I said this a while ago. We were talking about like filmmaker. I think I called him an auteur, and you got really like, "Oh, he makes trash and he's shit." And then I was like, "Well, hang on, RoboCop," and then some other good films that I can't remember the names of. And you did go like, "Oh yeah, fair enough." I think Paul Verhoeven has a real style. I think he brings a lot to his projects, and I think he's made some very, very, very good films.
I think he's an old man who likes tits.
Well, I think this film might be responsible for giving him the reputation that he has as a kind of hacky schlock filmmaker. And even that I'm not entirely sure how I feel about. But
we did Basic Instinct as well, which I think is his most famous film, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's trash as well.
I'd been meaning to watch this film for a while. It has a reputation as, it's a famous film, even if it's not regarded as a good film. In fact, thinking about it, I bet it's in my book of 1,000 films to watch before you die, but who knows?
I've just remembered something, Calvin. Isn't Sol's mum in a Paul Verhoeven film? Is that why he's getting so defensive?
Is she?
Did Paul Verhoeven direct Total Recall?
Yeah, she was the woman with 3 tits in Total Recall, wasn't she?
I mean, she was a background extra in that film, whilst pregnant with me, so I am arguably in that film as well.
Oh dear. Okay, this is why he's.
This explains a lot. Thank you for bringing that up, Alan. I'd forgotten about that.
Well, I forgot that was even a Paul Verhoeven film, but there you go. That's another great Paul Verhoeven film.
I think that's probably my favourite Paul Verhoeven film.
Yeah, well, it's a good film. RoboCop is best, I would say, but anyway, Yeah, I put this on expecting it to be kind of shit off the bat, and I've got to say, like, up front, this is an incredibly watchable film. Like, I found it very entertaining. It's just that the goodwill of kind of how it's put together begins to deteriorate once you realise that very little is actually happening. So by the end, I hated it, but it's only because it got boring. Does that make sense?
No, there's no story. There's no character development.
Yeah. But for the first 20 minutes, like the individual scenes, like the way they're shot and constructed, I was pretty engaged by them. Do you know what I mean? There's a certain quality of filmmaking. That first scene where she gets in a car and she's driving, hitchhiking. I thought that was all pretty engaging stuff. I'm not saying it's great, but you swiftly realize it's going nowhere, and that's the problem, is that what is the film saying or trying to say? And
I don't think I can fault the quality of the film making it on a technical level. Like I was actually really surprised. I watched I rented the HD stream of it on Amazon, and I was astonished like at how good it looked. And it even had like a little thing at the front of it saying, "This is the 2015 restoration from Pathé." And I was like, wow, this is like how Criterion Edition films begin, of like, classics that have been restored and stuff. And I couldn't believe how good it looked in that capacity. I the same cannot be said for the acting and the writing, which I think, right off the bat, Elizabeth Berkley, famous for what was it, Saved by the Bell? And this was supposed to be a big kind of like breakthrough into serious adult stuff, and she's all over the place, and it's clear right from the off.
I thought she was all right. I thought she was an engaging screen presence. I've never seen her in anything else, but to sell this kind of high camp, she would have fit right in House of Gucci, for example. Obviously, she'd have to do an Italian accent, but
but that's the problem, isn't it? It's not that she's a terrible actor or anything. It's just what she's being asked to do is unrealistic, or at least within. I don't know, because I'm sure people who act like that, but it's a completely unsympathetic role. You hate her immediately, and she never changes or gets better in any way as a character. I mean,
well, I didn't hate her immediately. Immediately, she's a woman hitchhiking, and then some prick starts, being a bit sleazy after picking her up. So she pulls out a knife just to say, "Don't try anything," and he's like, "Whoa, all right, I'll be respectful." And if anything, I was sort of like, oh, okay, she's your kind of classic badass who's not going to take no shit from, dickhead truck drivers.
I just liked her when she meets that friend that she ends up living with, who's like just out of the blue, like it's just characters that have no relationship with one another are suddenly sort of like talking to each other like best friends. But there's a bit where she takes her to dinner, and Elizabeth Berkley's character kicks off, and she like throws the fries all over the table and all over her new friend. And I'm like, God, this lady's being really nice to you. People are being quite, I mean, the guy in the van was obviously really scuzzy and just wanted sex, but
there's several times where people really go out of their way to sort of help her and in her life, in her career, and she spits it back in their face every time. And the problem with that is we never get to the point it was like, oh, well, she's come from this background. Oh, look, she was abused like this. And so that's why she's so defensive. And over the course of this film, she's going to learn to trust again and all this sort of thing. We never get any of that.
I think the idea of the film is that it's a cycle of abuse, isn't it? And we're just seeing one of those cycles play out. But you're right, we never see any setup for that. We can't just kind of be dropped in the middle of it for it to...
so we have no reason to like her. She's just a horrible person.
She definitely becomes something of a, an anti-hero, I think, by the end of the film. Like it's
I mean, she's a tragic figure because you just assume what must have happened to her in the past to make her like this. But
but she does flat out like try to, well, if not kill someone, break their legs. I mean, just point blank. There are problems with the film beyond the kind of lack of any real plot, what have you. It's also got some pretty iffy... its handling of certain sexual politics are perhaps well-intentioned, but ultimately directed by a sleazy white guy who likes looking at tits. So
and written by a sleazy white guy who likes looking at tits.
So it's that trying to have its cake and eat it too. And there's a rape towards the end, which is handled pretty atrociously. Just feels very exploitative in terms of its placement.
Well, that's it. There is one good person in this film, one person of any kind of moral character, and she gets brutally raped and beaten, and doesn't get any kind of justice for that, really.
No.
In any sense. And I guess maybe that's the point. But if what this film is trying to tell us is that life is shit and you never get out of it, then well done.
Well, I mean, how would you sum up the plot? Because I don't even... A woman hitchhikes away to Vegas. She wants to be a dancer.
It's kind of a scuzzy All About Eve, really. This sort of like
but it's
about
arriving
and
a young woman who is, let's be kind and say, naive, possibly mentally simple, goes into the wide world and soon falls into a very scummy area.
There's a disconnect here for me because I feel like it's being written as she is kind of like naive small town girl, just escaped this place and wants to sort of like make it in the big city kind of thing, and the nearest thing is Vegas, so that's what she has to kind of go for. But then this is at odds with some of the performance, which I feel is a bit more knowing, maybe. Like, you get the sense that she kind of knows what she's doing. I don't feel like she's seduced by this seedy world. She just already is a part of it.
I mean, our introduction to the character is her being on the defensive with men. She knows what men want from her, and she's going to stop them if she can, unless it's on her terms, right? So... we can assume all sorts of things about her past from that. Attractive young woman, and she knows that, so she's going to use that to her advantage, right? And so her whole driving force is, no, it's on my terms, right? But then we even see when she's working at a strip club, and we get the introduction to the strip club by showing a new girl coming in, and she's the naive one who's like, she's in the world already. We don't get her introduction to that world as a naive.
Well, it's not that she gets introduced to it so much as she wants to rise to the top and be the greatest stripper of all time who's going to have billboards, apparently.
Well, good news for her, because the Stardust Hotel has a strip show as part of its major entertainment. Is that a thing they do in Vegas? I honestly don't know.
Well, I can't imagine... It is, but maybe it was in the 90s? I don't know.
They just have a big poster outside saying it's classy because there's no muff.
Well, I've never been to Vegas, but I have been to Las Vegas Airport for a a changeover, whatever you call it. And there were big billboards for, Blue Man Group and Penn and Teller. I don't recall any tittillating women billboards.
I have been to Vegas, but I was 18 years old and it was a school trip, so I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but we had a teacher who was very savvy with her Tesco club card points, so she would do these big trips abroad, and I knew this because I worked at Tesco's when I was at sixth form.
Sorry.
So we're getting into the sexy
She's
stuff
buying
now,
flights from Tesco now. How does this
for
work?
40 kids.
There was like some kind of tie-in thing that with certain airlines, if you bought flights, you could translate the points into Tesco club card vouchers. They had all of these different incentive kind of things. So she would
So she got all the parents to pay for
and she
the
put
trip,
it through on her
book
card.
the flights, but put it through with her club card points, and then didn't have to buy beans for the rest of her life.
That's it. And but yeah, so they alternated between China and sort of West Coast America. So we did San Diego, stayed over at the Grand Canyon, and then a couple of nights in Las Vegas. Which, as we were all 18 years old or 17 years old at the time, and obviously you can't,
so you couldn't go in
drink
anywhere.
or gamble. No, exactly. So we could walk up the strip, and that was about it. Meanwhile, the teachers just buggered off. They literally dropped us at the bottom of the strip where the MGM hotel is, and said, "Right, meet us at Circus tonight at 9 p.m."
Well,
and then
it's
left for 12 hours.
It's an amazing. I when you said it, I thought there's no way my school would ever have gone to Las Vegas. How would they?
Or China. So where was the best place you went to on a school trip?
I think I went to like Belgium or something.
Yeah, I went to Paris.
I went
once,
around bits of Europe to look at World War II memorials. Like, we went to do educational stuff on our school trips. We didn't get a fucking trip to Vegas. That's crazy.
Yeah, I went to a posh school and I never did anything like that.
I went to a real school that obviously took some pride in what it was doing. It wasn't. Sounds like Calvin went to a bit of a scam.
No, it was just a regular old
Tesco
state
Academy.
comprehensive. But like I said, we just had this one teacher who, now that she's not there anymore, she retired. They don't run the trips anymore, so it was basically just her doing it.
I think, I think at my school they went to the same places on the school trips every year as well, because it wasn't like, where does the teacher fancy going on holiday this year for free? It's like, where do we have, where does the syllabus take us to learn this specific thing?
They have facilities.
Whenever we stayed in various places throughout this trip, and there was always like one room that was like on a floor of its own, and they put me and my friends in there because they said, we can trust you not to do anything silly. So I don't know what they thought other people were going to do, like, go to the ice machine and break it or something. But, yeah, but there was lots of fun hijinks of going in and out of rooms and stuff, because the teachers were in one of the hotels where we were all on one floor. The teachers would like stand guard in the hallway to make sure that people weren't going in and out of each other's rooms, but they neglected to notice that there were balconies connected, like, on the other side. So there was a great moment where the teachers were coming in and out, and at one point me and one of my friends we were in the room of some girls, and we had to hide behind the curtains so they didn't see us. That was good fun.
You were in the
good
room with some
fun.
Girls.
Yes, friends,
did the teachers come in and say, all right, all the boys, get back to the boys' room. Calvin, you can stay, that's fine.
Well, it's the same thing, wasn't it? We can trust you not to do anything silly.
Yes.
Not to deflower any of these innocent girls.
Have you ever deflowered someone, Calvin?
Have you ever deflowered an innocent girl, Calvin?
Not a girl, and I don't think... Oh, no, actually, yep. Oh, wait, do you use that adjective for blokes? Or... yes, but twice, as far as I'm aware... and in both instances, I only found out afterwards, which I didn't like. I didn't care for. It's too much pressure.
To know before, so you could enjoy.
You felt deceived.
Yes, I did. I felt cheated.
I mean, I feel like I should jump into the story I teed up at the start now, because it's vaguely relevant to this.
Ooh.
The story that I sort of alluded to earlier. I went on a date with someone, and as usual on a first date, they came back to mine and we were in bed and naked and everything. That's just, how I roll. And like, we were doing stuff, and then she told me she's a virgin. It was just like, oh, great. But it was before the sex, because, we weren't going to do that because she was a virgin, but she was clearly up for anything but. And she was kind of driving it. So basically, I like tried to kind of soft ghost her after that night, because I just thought, well,
and she was 25, right? So it's not like she was.
Oh yeah, I should add.
I was
Yeah, it's
ask
not
about
like
the age.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's not like I was, out with an 18-year-old who. Yeah. She's 25, but she's Iranian. Which I think might go some way towards explaining, and when I say that, I mean actually came over here from Iran, not her parents are Iranian, so I think there's probably some cultural stuff going on there. Yeah, basically it was like, right, well, my option now is keep dating her and until we have sex, at which point I know now from this one date that I'm not really interested in anything long term, and I think she is. So I'm not that despicable a human being. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that.
Calvin, he's not that despicable of a human being. Because he's not that despicable, because normally if you met someone on a date and didn't particularly care for them, he would keep dating them until they had sex with him. But
No,
she
I
was a
wouldn't.
virgin, so he didn't do that.
No, I wouldn't. I would see the one date I was on through to the end, and they typically want to sleep with me on the first date. And I don't know about you guys, I kind of feel like on the first date you don't really owe anyone anything. Do you know what I mean? You insofar as whatever happens on a first date, if I never talk to you again, hey guys, it was one date. Doesn't matter if we had sex or not, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, I've brought up the subject of ghosting before on I think, one of these Valentine shows, and you, Sol, were aghast at that as a practice. But do you see what I mean? Like, when it is like, when you aren't having a lot of dates, and as you say, for like a first date, you don't owe someone anything, I don't think. And to be honest, I preferred it, and I would be on the receiving end of it as well, no pun intended.
Yeah, I've received it both ways. Oh.
Yeah, and I prefer that, because after one date, I don't want someone who met me for like 4 or 5 hours to tell me that they don't think we're compatible because we've, got different interests or whatever.
I've had that happen, and it's always been a bit like, I mean, initially it would usually happen, to be perfectly honest, because I would sleep with someone, feel an obligation to not just be rude by ghosting them, and sort of be like, oh yeah, how are you? And then they would follow that up with, yes, so I just don't know if we're actually that compatible long term. So it was always, that was often what would happen. It was like, oh right, so it's fine to sleep with someone once and never see them again. They might be fine with that too.
Can I ask you a question, Sol, about your dating procedure?
Is this going to take us off on a tangent, or should I finish talking about the
finish your
Iranian
story. Go on.
woman first? Okay, well, anyway, basically, I tried to soft ghost her, which means I reply to her messages.
With one word replies, yes, no.
Yeah, I just kind of don't put much effort or enthusiasm in, and hopefully they kind of get the point that you're not that excited about it. And there's certain things, and I don't condone like playing games exactly, but I will find it a really off-putting thing if consistently, and it's fine if this happens once or twice, but consistently when I message someone, if they reply like that, the second I send the message, I think, what is wrong with this person? Why are they always on their phone? Why are they so eager that they're dropping even if they're on their phone, they're dropping what they're doing on their phone to immediately reply to me? And I don't like that. I think a normal person will, even if they really like someone, probably like finish up what they were doing and then have a look at that, and hopefully you're not on your phone your whole life, but she would consistently reply the second I sent anything, and I wouldn't even beforehand. It would be like, I don't have the time to check Bumble more than like once or twice a day. I'm actually busy. Basically, she was just sending all these messages, and they were messages along the lines of, hey, I'm going to delete this app, so here's my number, and then like an hour later, hey, how are you? It was just that kind of tragic, and it just... Anyway, she started to really annoy me, and she got mad that I hadn't replied for like 3 days at one point, which to be fair, like, I meant to reply to her, but I was busy. And there was a point earlier on where I was going to reply, but her messages were annoying me, so I was like, well, I'll do it later. And then so I wasn't completely ignoring her, but she deleted the app and everything. Oh, and she found me on Instagram. I never told her my surname. I don't know how she found me on there. She was liking and commenting on every post consistently. And, I was posting up a bit of food and stuff, and she would comment like, oh, save some for me, I'll be right over. And like a little emoji of like a running woman or whatever. And it was just like, fuck off, leave me alone. and it's that push-pull dynamic. Wait, Alan, did you say push me, pull you before we started recording? Hilarious sexual. All right. Okay. Sorry, listeners. We were chatting before we started recording. But it's that push-pull dynamic really just like repelled me. And then she unfollowed me and followed me again on Instagram to obviously send the notification to me again. That it was just things like that. And eventually, because I mentioned on our date that I was also on Hinge, or am on Hinge, I should say, and she didn't know what it was. I got a notification that she'd liked me on Hinge, and I looked, and she'd sent me a message, can't stop thinking about that night, blah, 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 blah. And so I messaged her on there like, hey, sorry, look, I wasn't trying to ghost you, but I do think this,
Calvin, what do you think he did to her on this night that was so magical?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out if she's like, because she's a virgin, she's just having unreasonable emotions about someone that she barely knows, but got naked with in bed. Like...
Oh God, I told her first date I love her the other night. So I was about to start making fun of her, but then I remembered that I did that. All right, so
oh my God.
That's another story for later. That's another tease.
We're getting the extreme of the soul dating stories here. There's one that you come back with that you try to ghost but don't really, and another one you tell them that you love them.
All right, well, I'm aware there's so many moving parts here and different stories happening at once, but Alan likes to paint a picture of me as this awful, misogynistic womanizer guy
I
who
paint
sleeps
an
with
accurate
women
picture
and
of
uses
what your
them.
behavior is. So if
And
that's what you take from it.
And I am not that. I am out there looking for someone to fall in love with, and it just happens that it's very rare that I meet someone that I like that much, and I still have sex with a lot of them because we're out on a first date getting along and they want to fuck me and I like sex. So, I think that's pretty reasonable behaviour.
So, do you like sex?
Yes.
Or do you just crave it obsessively?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I like orgasms, but I guess I'm pretty content with masturbating.
Do you get more satisfaction from the physical act of having sex or knowing that you've had sex?
Oh, 100% the latter. Like, the second the penis goes in, I'm like, right, done. Job's done. It is weird that it's like there's all the build up and then it's like it's in, and it's meant to be like wow, now I'm gonna come, but for me it's like no, all the endorphins are released.
It's all about the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, completely. But anyway, I'm gonna wade back to anyway. This Iranian woman. Do you want to hear the messages? Oh, she's deleted her profile. Okay, never mind.
Oh God, that would have been brilliant.
I said something, to the effect of, yeah, look, sorry, like, this clearly means a lot more to you than me. I don't see any long-term future, so I don't think we should take it any further, I think I was pretty reasonable and the right thing to do and everything. And then she was sort of like, yeah, it was this tirade of like, a message a minute for about half an hour, and I got like 500 messages, and they were just like, what do you mean meaningful? Why don't you see a future for us? Grinning face. How'd you realize so quickly? Also, I got this app just to find you and talk to you. So that was the creepy bit, which was that she had set up the profile purely to find me. And I don't know how, like, Hinge just shows you people randomly in the area. So she must have, like, cycled through a lot of people before getting to me. That is weird stalker behavior, right? If a guy did that to a woman, it would be reason for alarm. Okay. And then I looked at her profile, and it was, her main picture was the outfit that she'd worn on our date that I had said, oh, that's a really nice outfit to her. I'd like complimented her on it on the date, and she'd started talking about it. It was a new photo from what I could gather. Certainly wasn't one I'd seen before. So I think she took that picture specifically because of me. And all of I don't know if you've used Hinge, but you have to fill out 3 prompts. So there are like questions like, all I ask is that XYZ.
Sol Harris replies to this message.
Well, she'd filled it out with all this stuff of like, all I ask is that you're not a player and just stuff like that. It was this really like anti fuck boys kind of mentality. And it was sort of like, oh, come on, like. And that's what annoys me before, like do you really owe someone anything after a first date? Because it's like, look, I went on a date with you. We didn't even have sex. I was I cannot overstate how like respectful and like, look, I don't want to go any further with this than you're comfortable. Even before she mentioned that she was a virgin, I was just sort of like she was driving it. Am I supposed to stop when she's like, oh, I'll come back to yours or whatever? Am I supposed to go, actually, no, because I don't see a long-term future with you? Anyway, Alan, you had a question that I believe was leading off from this.
Well, I just wanted to ask you about your procedure here, because as we've established here, you like to go on one date with people, have sex with them, and then never speak to them again. That's your preference. So obviously you spend a few hours buttering them up, with implying them with alcohol.
I don't butter anyone up. I'm apparently charming. In fact, Alan, I thought, I don't know if we what. I'm aware there are like techniques people have to manipulate people into bed, and I don't do any of that. People like me.
It might be perfectly normal and natural, but clearly you're getting people into bed, so you're doing something to get them into bed. Even if that is being a nice guy and being sexy, then that's fine.
But that isn't manipulating, is it? Manipulating implies a dishonesty, and I am...
Yeah, but you're not really a nice guy, are you?
I'm a lovely guy.
Clearly, the person you're putting across in these dates is not the real you, as we know.
I cannot stress how upfront and honest I am. Even with this Iranian girl, she asked me, what are you looking for on Bumble? And I said, like, I sort of pulled a face like, I don't know. And then I kind of said, well, look, the best case scenario, like pie in the sky end game is like find the love of my life. But obviously I'm not going to hold everyone to that standard. If I like, you know, things happen along the way, I just want to get out and meet people and see what happens and have a nice time with them, which I think's pretty upfront and honest. It's like, look, I'll take anything along the way, but ultimately I am looking for this. But she only heard the first bit and stopped listening to me. Is that my fault? And once again, I will stress that I have a second date lined up with a woman that I'm very, very excited about, and I really enjoyed our first date. I'm not lying. Like if things go well with her, great. Like that is the goal. I'm trying to find someone that I have something meaningful with, but people like fucking me.
Using that kind of language, though, with certain women on first dates.
Well, I didn't know she was a mental virgin, Calvin. It was one of the first questions she asked, and I thought she was a normal person.
I can guarantee you that no other date most people go on will their first date be like, oh, well, I'm looking for the love of my life on here. People don't say that. It's that is a kind of buttering up, I would say.
Well, how are you supposed to word that, then?
You say, oh, I'm just trying to meet people, get to know some people, and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
I pulled a face, I kind of did weighing it up hands and kind of went, well, you know, best case scenario, pie in the sky. Like, look, I'm not expecting this to happen here. Don't get me wrong, but like, yeah,
that was
in
what
an
the
ideal world,
with the
I would like
gesture meant to you. But to
yeah,
her...
well, I did, Alan. I made it very clear with my body language and umming and ahhing that I already probably didn't think she was the one. Because I think you know pretty swiftly if there's potential after like 30 seconds of meeting someone, really.
Well, if you think she isn't the one, saying something like that is definitely misleading then right off the bat. You should have definitely gone with something a bit more like, oh, I don't know, just see what happens. Something more ambivalent.
Well, I moved to that. I said, but XYZ, and I kind of gestured at her as I was saying it. Like, but I'm just, you know, happy to meet people, and I like going out and seeing what people have to offer and getting to know them. And
Did you say, I want to fall in love, but point to her, obviously that's not going to happen on every date?
Well, in as many words, yes. I mean, I was at the time open to potentially further dates and just having a kind of like, oh, well, see what happens. But it was the virgin thing that was like a hard line. Oh, no, cut this off now. Don't let this get any further. Because I know I'm not going to marry her, and she probably wants me to marry her to deflower her or something. It obviously means a lot more to her, and there's a very good chance that I'll lose interest in her after a couple of dates, you know? I and that can't be helped. I'm not doing it on purpose. I've said this before, like, I think you know very quickly if there's potential with someone from
Potential
whether
for
or
what?
not you're potential to like them and want to see them long term.
Let's say you've been on 10 dates, okay? Different people.
Yeah.
And you know within, let's say, 10 minutes if there's any real long-term chance here.
Yeah.
So how many times out of 10 do you think I'm definitely aiming for a second date at least here?
Less than one, probably.
So how many of those 10 do you sleep with on the first date?
I'd say 8 out of 10 something happens, and then maybe 7 or 6, yeah, sleep with them.
So, and then never speak to them again?
Well, not if they message me back the next day or whatever. I'll still sort of be like, oh, hey, how you doing? I just won't ask them on a second date.
There must be some limit, though. There must be some line where you go on a date and it's actually quite a bad date, and you're thinking, oh, I'm just getting out of here.
Yeah.
Or would you go, well, I'll fuck her and then get out of here?
Depends. Is that why I'm a bad person? That bit.
I don't know. I don't judge.
Have you ever had to do like an emergency exit out of a date kind of thing, like, you know, escape via a window or something, like, or just leave? Has that ever happened to either of you?
I don't think I've ever been in that situation with someone. To be
No, I haven't.
frank.
But I think you're the same as me, Sol. You will have quite a bit of chat back and forth before you have a date. So, like, even by texting or whatever. So you've got a good idea. You know, you usually got an idea if they're totally wrong for you.
Oh no, I did have the other story that we alluded to before. Actually, that was kind of this, wasn't it?
This is a big story, though, isn't it? This is like.
Should we talk about Showgirls a bit?
Let's come back to that one, yeah, because that's
all right.
Well, all right. Just as a segue talking point, I want to ask about sex with women, and if it looks anything like
Sol's
what
the man
Elizabeth
to talk
Berkley
to
is
there,
doing
does
to
it all the
people in this,
time.
she is doing some kind of like writhing around and like
Yeah,
contorting
well, that's because
her
she's a
body
dancer.
into.
That's
Well, I understand the dancing side of it, but when she's in the pool with Kyle MacLachlan's character,
that's when
it's hilarious.
That's how I became aware of this film, because I was watching, like, it must have been on Channel 4 or something, like, the 100 worst movies of all time or something like that. And then they started playing clips from that sex scene, and there was a comedian going, "Oh, she looks like a bloody dolphin. It's ridiculous." And I was just there as, like, a 12-year-old, like, "Oh, what is this film? Showgirls." So, there was a time when I found that scene erotic, but, I mean, it is fucking hilarious.
It was a time when just seeing some tits was enough.
Well, not just that, but there is like an animalistic, like, whoa, she's going rainbow rhythms on his dick, and she don't care. And I mean, it is funny now, but yeah, my 12, 13, 14-year-old self looked beyond the hilarity. But no, if you're asking if that's normal, Calvin, if that's what women are like, then no. I mean, frankly, you're lucky to get a woman to go on top.
Oh, but would that be appealing if it was that kind of vigorous?
In the right mood, I could go for it. But
even in the scene, Kyle MacLachlan just looks confused more than aroused. I mean,
yeah, if it was literally like she is in this film where she's like flailing, because it's about the hip movement, really, isn't it? There's a point, like, moving your torso doesn't really make a difference. So
just speaking of the sex scenes, there's a scene here where the woman Elizabeth Berkley, she gives a lap dance to Kyle MacLachlan, and as far as I could tell, he came in his pants.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's really happy about it.
Yeah, and I
just thought if that happened, I would be so annoyed. It would just be so awkward. You'd be like, "Oh God, I'm not going home for another 3 hours, so I've got to walk." I've got to walk around with this in my pants. This is a nice suit.
Well, I think when he's done, his girlfriend, who's been watching all this, just come over, and I think she says something like, "Can you walk?" And he says, like, "Oh yeah, just about," or something like that. And I did wonder if that meant like, is that because
have you got an erection
wetness?
still, or has it gone down? I think, isn't it?
Oh no, I didn't get that. I just thought it was such a magical orgasm that his legs had gone weak.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was has your dick gone down, because otherwise you're going to stand up and it's going to kind of. We've all had that, right? Where you've got to get up and you've got a
Not if I've just come, no.
No, but you've got to get up where. Wait, hang on. If you just come, does it go immediately flaccid?
Well, yeah, maybe not. Maybe
Really?
give it 20 seconds or something, but yeah.
Yeah, same.
I mean, mentally, I've checked out immediately.
Yeah, I check out immediately, but mine stays hard for quite a while. Mine stays hard enough that it's like a problem if I want to go to have a piss immediately after sex. It's like I'm gonna have to lean forward, angle it down. Do you guys?
Why don't you sit down and angle it down?
Because what?
It wouldn't fit in. You'd just be rammed up against the porcelain.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why would sitting help?
Well, no, because you could sort of like angle it down. Would that not be easier?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I wonder what that means.
Oh no, I've known. It varies from person to person quite significantly.
If you're ever out there in the real world, anybody listening to this, and you come in your pants because someone is dry humping you, if you're over the age of 14, you really need to get a grip on yourself.
Yeah, I agree
Literally.
because
I need to masturbate more often.
well, I agree completely. I'd forgotten that dry humping was a thing until I had this date with this virgin, and she was really into it. And the thing she kind of got us to do, which I thought was fucking weird, and I didn't really want to do, and and part of me like kind of ghosting was like I didn't enjoy our time in bed together. Do you know what I mean? Like,
What did
it was
she make you do, Sol?
among other things that I didn't really like. The big thing was she was like, you know, like dry hump me, but we're naked, and my penis was just kind of rubbing on a vagina, and I was sort of like, well, look, I'm gonna put a condom on because, like, if I do come, that can still. That's what happened in Scrubs. That's how he got Elizabeth Banks pregnant in Scrubs. So,
Do you come that unexpectedly? Like you don't get any warning or anything?
Well, there's pre-cum, isn't there? There's
You can even get pregnant from that.
Oh, behave yourself. There's being safe and there's just being, too safe.
Yeah, well, I don't hate condoms like you do, Alan. It's not a problem for me. So I was like, I'm just going to pop a condom on. She was like, she was like, red flag moment was like, what, you have condoms by the bed? Because I have them in my bedside table like a normal person. And I was just sort of like, yes. And she was really thrown by the fact that I just had condoms ready to go by the bed.
Why
which
on
I think
earth
should
would
tell
she be
you
thrown by that?
because she's a mental virgin.
Look, so we've probably got a lot of mental 25-year-old virgins listening to us right now, so let's be polite.
Well, yeah, but they probably have their own stash of condoms for posh wanking. They know where you keep them, by the bed. Or under the bed, depending on your bed setup.
Well, you don't want your mum to find them.
But anyway, so I ended up having to, like, grind on a woman and sort of, like, half poke the very tip in as far as it'll go before the hymen prevents it from going any further, which is like what, a centimeter in like not a lot. It was just like it was weird, and I didn't really. And I was thinking,
That's
might
fun
as
when
well
you're 15,
be...
though, isn't it? It's great when you're 15.
Well, that would have been beyond my wildest dreams when I was 15.
Yeah,
We just had
exactly.
trousers and pants on.
There's a
I was
time for that.
thinking, like, as I was there with her, like, we might as well just be having sex.
Yeah.
We're both naked. We've both seen everything. The problem was, right, the reason she fell in love with me is I made her come with my mouth, and I don't think anyone's ever made her come before. I do not, But my point is, like, after we've done things like that, and I'm there poking my knob around the vagina, we might as well have sex. And I'm not saying that in like a for fuck's sake, let's do it kind of way. It was just like, what is going on in your headspace that is like a step too far, but you're perfectly willing to on a first date kind of. And anyway, like I didn't enjoy it when she made me. All right, this is an answer to your question, Calvin.
What was the question? I forgot what it was.
Have you ever done anything to get out of a date? To like,
Oh, there we go. Okay.
It got to the point where it was like, I've just got to come, otherwise she's not going to go away. So I just had to like.
It was a mercy coming.
It genuinely was, because I wasn't really enjoying it at this point. I was already like, I don't really want to see her again. This sex is already quite bad. I knew that her brother was up waiting for her to go home. It was like 3 a.m. and she lives with her brother. So I was just like, right. So I had to basically lie there and masturbate while she watched, and even that she made like fucking weird because then when she was like obsessed with it. When it came out, she was there like grinning, looking at it. She like dipped her finger in it, rubbed it around. I think she tasted it. It was like, well, just don't do that. I want to I want to get up and clean myself off. I don't want to lie here while you like paint a picture and on my stomach with it, whatever the fuck you're doing. So there you go. I had to like have a really like frantic wank to get someone to go away because they wouldn't. Anyway, what was the point? Showgirls. This is mad, isn't it? I've got all these questions lined up to ask you about sex, and we haven't needed any of them. I'm gonna rattle off the ones from Discord really quickly because they'll be disappointed otherwise. Chris on our Discord wanted to know if any of us have ever come in someone's ear. Calvin?
Oh, Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think so. Not deliberately, anyway.
Yeah, not with intent, but it might have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely, quote unquote, shagged girlfriends in the ear to the extent that you just kind of poke your knob at, like, it's not obviously not going to go in, is it? But it was always like a kind of jokey thing, like, oh yeah,
More
let's
than
do
once,
that.
though.
Let's do that so I can say that I've done it. But I don't think I ever
Well,
completed.
you've done that to multiple partners.
You wouldn't be able to. There's nothing to get friction going, surely.
Well, yeah, it was like this virgin. It was just poking it at the tip before it goes in. Same thing. Tom Patton, good old
Here's a
Tom.
man who knows what he's talking about.
Hey.
I don't think he understood what we were asking for, so he's got the question, is the acting supposed to be bad on purpose? So I think he misunderstood the request.
Well, he's bringing us back on track.
Yes, it's a good excuse to actually talk about the film, because this was a question that I wanted to ask actually about. I know that I read some of the online commentary about this film, and it does seem fairly split between people who just think it's a god-awful film, people who think it's kind of an interesting exploitation kind of thing, and other people who think it's like a satire on the industry that it's sort of in. And I think I'm more inclined to agree with it's just a bad film. But I was wondering, like, because we've had discussions about this before, and Sol, I know you and I particularly disagree on whether or not we think M. Night Shyamalan is particularly aware of when he's being funny and when he's not. So I was curious to see, because I don't think this is intended to be funny, but I think it's so bad that it is.
I'm going to point back to my thoughts on Starship Troopers, which I think are very similar to this, whereby Starship Troopers people are kind of split on it's a load of stupid shit, or actually it's a satire and therefore it's brilliant and intelligent. And I've always been a bit of an outlier, because I think Starship Troopers is a satire and kind of knows what it's doing, but that doesn't make it particularly great. You know, it just because it's doing it on purpose doesn't mean that it's doing it well, or doing it badly well, so to speak. And I think Showgirls is kind of the same thing. I think it is quite self-aware, maybe not completely, but I don't think that's enough to make it good or justify the fact that it's like incredibly dull by the end and aimless and goes nowhere and problematic in places. And so
when we are seeing the pole dancing and the sex scenes and stuff, like, I get that it's supposed to be titillating. It's, you know, it's maybe I no, it's not trying to have its cake and eat it too. I think it is trying to be some kind of erotic drama thriller kind of thing, similar to how Basic Instinct was, but it doesn't have the story there. I think a part of my problem with it is that I never know if, because the film is so objective, I guess, about these characters. I never really feel like we know whether Elizabeth Berkley is just being performative or like when she's being sincere. I never know who she is. So that's
I think she's very impetuous. There's nothing calculated about it. Everything she does is in the moment. Like even when she pushes the woman down the stairs, and she's going to get something out of that at the other side. It's like she's not thinking that. She's just thinking, I hate this bitch. I'm going to push her down the stairs because here's my chance. What we get in Showgirls is the Glenn Plummer character. He's like, oh, look, you got real talent. I can shape you. I can mold you. But then he's like working as a bouncer. So like, who does he think he is? Like, to me,
I thought that.
It doesn't quite make sense.
Eventually, he convinces her to come over. And I thought initially, like, oh, well, this is the plot. It's going to be a love story between these two. And, you know, they're doing that. But the first time they, like, train together, it gets a bit steamy and they start kissing and she's like, well, I'm on my period, so I'll see you later. And then later on, she goes round to his and he's got a woman in bed who we saw earlier, another dancer, and she gets really mad about it. Like, how dare you sleep with someone else? And then he gets really like, hey, I don't got no ties to... I felt a bit like this with the
just made me think of you this season.
Yeah. Well, the Iranian girl got all funny about... She looked on my Instagram and she was like, oh, I wanted to see you again, but I guess you're already seeing someone else. And it was like, what do you mean seeing someone? Like, but she'd seen the woman's hand in a photo I put on Instagram. It was the woman I told I love on the first date, Alan. But
oh dear,
I got very drunk, like worryingly drunk.
So it wasn't like a real dedication of love. It was like, oh, I love you sort of thing.
Well, I think what happened was I was trying to I do at time of recording I do actually like her quite a lot, but at the on the date
At time of editing, we'll just slip in a comment.
But I was trying to convey in the way like you would say, I love crisps. I love chocolate. I was sort of like, I love, oh no, and then it came out, and as I said it, it was like, oh shit. But I was like 10 pints in at this point. I was,
10?
Well, it was a long. She has a tricky work pattern, right? She's training to do some. She's training to do some stuff. She's on these shifts that are like night shifts, basically, at the moment. She'd been self-isolating with COVID for 10 days. We basically had one day where she could come out of having COVID, see someone before like 6 days of work begins. But she had to be at work at 5 a.m. She was like, right, so, you know, it's got to be like a daytime thing. Let's. So basically we started at 2 p.m., which is like obviously an incredibly early date. And I think the plan was kind of 2.
Well, can I stop you there, Sol? I want to ask you about this, Calvin, because Sol has a very tight procedure of going out in the evenings and getting them drunk, because then he can bring them back to
No,
his
I
place.
don't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Whereas I'm perfectly
pattern,
comfortable
Sol.
with a mid-afternoon date and just get to know someone.
That's what a date is. You go out for a drink. That's normal. Alan doesn't drink, so he doesn't know what a normal people do for a date. Calvin, that is what would your default first date be with someone?
Yeah, it would be that, to be honest. Just drinks, because in that first meeting you do just want to have an opportunity to talk. Yeah. I've never been one for like a cinema first date, or even a restaurant first date is a bit formal.
No, I'm not talking about that, Calvin, though. But Calvin, if someone said to you, yeah, let's go for a drink at 2:00, that's when I'm free, 2:00 in the afternoon, would you go, okay, fair enough, I'm free, I'll go and see him at 2:00? Or would you think, no, because no one's going to come back to my place and sleep with me at 5:00, so there's no point going at 2:00? Would you think that? Is that your mentality?
No, I mean, if it was a weekend, I would probably have gone and sort of, seen what happened. I did definitely have picnic dates and that kind of thing. But, it tends to, it gets to the evening and then it's like, right, well, I'll head home now. Goodbye, sort of thing, because it's a first date, so...
Well, you're not going to sleep with them on the first date.
Well, I can't ever think of an afternoon date for an afternoon first date that turned.
Well, that's exactly why
that.
you wouldn't bother with an afternoon date, would you? A waste of time.
I don't even know what.
I'm not casting aspersions on your character, Sol. We've established you're a man of high
But this
morals.
isn't like
But
some evil manipulative
I'm just explaining
thing.
what's happening. I just seek to tell the truth. That's all.
But I will go on a date with someone in the afternoon, or for like not to drink. It's just not my preference. Is that terrible?
I'm not. I make no judgments.
Even if I really like someone, I would like to sleep with them on the first date.
Oh, that's good of you. So it's not just people you don't like that you sleep with.
Well, exactly. I would like to have sex.
That's a bit odd.
I've not had sex in quite a while. I'm at a bit of a dry spell because we've just had the Christmas break. And,
Go on, Sol. What's your dry spell?
2 or 3 weeks at this point.
Our listeners are crying into their empty hands.
I must admit, I keep thinking like, oh god, it's getting really bad. This has been really long, and then I look and I'm like, oh, it's only like the start of January. It's not that long at all. It's been like, yeah. I'm not counting the Iranian girl in this, by the way. If we count her, it's been less than 2 weeks. But
I've definitely had many a situation where like not many a situation, I suppose, but situations where the first date is going really well, and then I don't want to sleep with them. But generally, if I think it's going really well, it's sort of less of an incentive for me because I think, oh, well, we're going to see each other again, hopefully. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't sleep with this person that I liked the other day, but anyway, the point that what I was saying was it started at 2 p.m. and so I was drinking a lot because normally you start the date at like 7-8 p.m. and so you can only drink for like 5 hours or however long before places close.
You can only drink for 5 hours. What sort of world do we live in where you have to only drink for 5 hours?
We were out drinking for 8 hours before I like stumbled home, and I got to the point where I didn't remember the end of the date. I have no recollection of how I got home. So,
do you think she might have slipped something in your drink?
what, more drink?
A double vodka.
No, I think I had somewhere in the region of 10 pints of beer. It's quite a lot of alcohol. And I didn't eat all day because I don't tend to eat before 2 p.m. on a weekend anyway.
What?
Well, I didn't get up till like midday. I was out the night before or seeing a friend impromptu who turned out wanted to fuck me and I didn't know about it, and that was weird. I think I'm just so charming and lovable. She stayed out with me way longer than we were meant to.
So when you were on this, wait a minute, when you were in this 8-hour drinking session, did you not at any point go, "Shall we have some food?
No.
We should get some food." No, it didn't occur to you. Just didn't.
Well, Calvin will probably back me up on this, but again, Alan, as someone who doesn't drink, it is actually very easy to kind of be having such a merry, jolly time that you do completely lose track of how many drinks you've had, what time it is. I wasn't hungry.
Because you were full of beer.
I was going to say probably had like 3,000 calories of beer.
Once I've had a good bit to drink, I lose my appetite. I'll admit that I've definitely gone. But it'll get to like 10 o'clock and then I'll get home and then I have to like eat just bread or something to soak it up.
With that day and then the following hangover, I went a good 40 plus hours without eating. Very odd.
Oh,
You're right. I should start drinking. What do you think it is that gives you this sort of sexual magnetism towards?
I do actually have a theory about this, but
I'll go on.
well, I think, and I've only just kind of put this theory together.
All right, settle in.
So it's not, don't think, oh, he does it on purpose or anything, and he's a manipulative, awful person. But like, my theory is, I tend to come across like I'm not very interested in women. I have I've had many experiences where after like a kiss or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh God, I didn't think you even liked me," or they kind of thought things were going badly, or maybe they've come over for sex and then they're like, "Right, well, I guess I'll go," and I'm like, "Oh, you sure you want to go?" And then they're like, "Oh, I thought you didn't, want it."
and you rectify this by now telling them that you love them on the first date.
Yeah. So I think basically I just don't come across, like, I think a lot of men are really pushy and eager and like they can sniff it a mile away. This guy's desperate for shagging. That's all he wants. And with me, I'm a lot more like, I am very fucking like hands off and respectful on that front because I don't want to overstep any boundaries or like. So in hindsight, looking back on it, more often than not, the woman will kind of initiate a kiss rather than me, which I think is quite unusual. I've had a lot of instances of like the woman kind of leaning over the table and grabbing me by the neck and like kissing me and things, stuff like that. Like by like the collar of my shirt, not by like throttling,
not by the
not like
throat.
Homer Simpson with Bart. Yeah. But I think they get all the messages from me of, oh, he's safe, he's not like just sniff it, he's not desperate for sex. And then and also maybe he's not even that into me. And then counteractively, that puts them on like the defensive of, why isn't he into me? Now I need to seek his approval and get him to like physically be into me. So I do wonder if that's what's happening. And I hope not, because that is very close to like techniques people will employ consciously to...
You're just a natural neg. That's what we've established here.
But I'm not even trying. Like I would try and show that I am interested in someone. I think I must just be so far along a certain part of the spectrum that I can't convey my attraction to someone with body language. So I have to tell them that I love them in order to get the point across. I have a list of sex questions if we want one of those.
Yeah?
What's the worst sex that you've ever had?
Oh.
I went on a date with this guy once. He told me he loved me because he was completely pissed. And then we had sex, but he can't remember it.
I had that with a guy who I was giving all the signals away to, and he decided that he was just going to lie next to me and wank himself off, and then...
He didn't even ask you to lend a hand or anything.
She wasn't good enough at doing it, Alan. That's the point. That's why it was bad. You don't think I tried that? I mean, fucking hell, of course. That was why it was bad. It got to the point where I had to finish myself off. That's how, like... That's not even the worst like sex I've had. I mean, God, I've had worse than that.
Yeah, I've had loads of bad sex.
Is the worst one you've had, Alan, the one you told us about last year after we stopped recording, where she shat herself?
No, that wasn't even a particularly bad experience. There was fun to be had there, but But I mean, there's been numerous occasions where I've had sex out of a sense of duty, and I've had no kind of emotional or physical motivation whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's very
they're the bad
difficult
ones
to really get into it.
I must have talked about the flight attendant that I went on a date with once, who was super aggressive. I must have mentioned that on a previous one.
Gosh, super aggressive.
Is he the one who made you wear a saddle?
No. No, but it was like at a point where it was a bit like, this is a bit too rough, actually. And then at one point he like bit into my cheek, and it was like, oh no, it's like one of the only times I'd be like, no, actually, this isn't going any further. This is really not pleasant. But then he had got a bit emotional about it. I was like talking about how hard his job was, and he started to sort of tear up a bit. So he stayed the night, but nothing happened, and then we never saw each other again. But it was a really bad date too, because I didn't think he was very into me at all, because he spent most of the night chatting to like the bar people who were really drunk at this one bar.
That's a move.
What does that mean?
Well, you craved his validation.
That's a pickup technique. You flirt with other people to make the person that you're interested in be like, oh, they're flirting with other people. I better really work hard for their approval. Now I want their approval, whereas before I didn't, because they were interested in me.
It was a Sunday night date, which is another thing I don't recommend. I think Sunday night dates are really bad.
See, Alan thinks you're a bad person if you don't want to go on a date on a Sunday.
No. I mean, a bad person? I don't know.
I just think with work the next day, it's not the right vibe for it, I don't think. But we were in this bar where the only other people were there was sort of like this drunk pair of middle-aged women who must have known one of the bar people, because they just kept sort of cackling with him, and they smashed something at one point. So it was all really awkward, because I just kept thinking, I don't want them to come over here, and they seem like the type that would, and then they think we're going to be friends and spend the night with them, and I don't want to do that. So it was a dreadful night, really. But yeah, that was the worst one, where Hannibal Lecter sort of biting my face. That's the worst.
I think my worst will be like Alan said. There's one in particular I'd probably point to, but yeah, just a couple of like sex dates with people where you just kind of get there and you're just like, oh God, like I hate this person. They're a fucking idiot. Their life makes me depressed.
Ooh.
I don't want anything to do with them, and they're like ugly, but I told them we'd have sex, so now out of obligation I'm just going to kind of go through with it.
Why did you hang on, what were the circumstances that led you to this?
Yeah.
Did you just walk away?
Well, these are sex date people where I've gone round to theirs and then I'm like,
yes, but you need to pick your people a bit better, I suppose. Yeah. I know what you mean, though, yeah.
I know, well, I mean, this was probably the peak of my...
sex addiction.
I think I probably would qualify for sex addiction if you were to evaluate me. You know, one of the films that was up on the poll for this year, Shame. Is it called Shame?
Oh, yes, Michael Fassbender.
Have you seen that film, Gavin?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it, yeah.
Well, it's meant to be this, like, depiction of this man with a sex addiction and how it's like ruining his life and he's got a horrible life. And I just watched it and I thought, yeah, what's wrong with that? I mean, I'm not even joking. Genuinely, I watched it like, where's the problem?
I know that he goes gay at the end, and that's supposed to be like
oh my god.
Well, that was towards that was towards the end. It goes around a gay bathhouse, and it's meant to be like, oh, that's it. It's like, is it meant to be like, oh, look how far he's fallen? It's like, no, come on, guys, this is like, come on, that's. But yeah, the only problem in that film, like in terms of conflict, is that his sister has like mental health problems and she comes to stay with him and they have an awkward dynamic and it all stems from that. But in terms of his day-to-day life, it's fine. There's a scene where she finds all his porn, like his porn videos, and it's meant to be like, oh my god, he's got so much porn, what a horrible life. And it's like,
check my hard drive.
It's porn.
Yeah.
And yeah, the vast majority of the behavior in that film is stuff that I've done myself. I think the only thing that was completely alien was when he hires a sex worker, a prostitute, to his apartment.
Can we talk a little bit more about the film?
This is just as a segue from that. We're talking about porn there briefly. Does a film like this even get made nowadays when you have, at your fingertips
50 Shades of
a
Grey.
world of pornography? It was 50 Shades of Grey aimed at women though?
Well, yeah, that's the difference. 50 Shades of Grey is porn for women.
Yeah. So this obviously isn't. This is.
So they're kind of still catching up. They're a couple of decades behind. I mean, to me, this was late night Channel 5 fodder. There was obviously a market for this back in the day, and I think it was before porn, like back when porn was on VHS and before it was socially acceptable to have a shelf full of it.
And this was rated NC-17 in the US, which is pretty much kind of
Really?
like a
Was
box
it?
office suicide kind
the
of
most
move.
successful NC-17 ever, I believe.
Yes,
Bloody hell.
correct. Yeah, because that really
not that
restricts your
fucking-
marketing and all that
Yeah,
kind of
most
stuff. But they were
cinemas will not
clearly
play,
trying to generate some buzz from that. I read on one of the pages that the studio, like, they were doing that, that classic thing of like inflating the importance of the film by sending out workers specifically there to make sure that no one who would pay for a ticket for another film would then sneak into Showgirls and experience it that way, which is obviously like marketing. It's like Alfred Hitchcock with Psycho. Like,
I thought you were going to say they had people walking up and down the aisles to make sure no one was having a wank, shining lights on people. Oi, put that back in your trousers.
That might have been a better way to go, actually.
I used to work in a cinema.
Oh God. Was it?
I mean, it's a second-hand story. Don't get too excited. But no, I remember someone who worked there once caught someone having a wank in Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah.
I hope it was the scene that ends with the character, opening the floodgates, so to speak, and they had a bit of a rude awakening.
But I think that the rating thing here is clear. I think they were clearly going for that, and I think coming off of Basic Instinct as well, which was a very, erotically charged thriller, and Sharon Stone doing the whole crossing legs thing, like it's very. I think there was a market for it around this time, and perhaps the rating, the MPAA sort of stuff was in a place where you could pretty much do some of this is like pretty softcore porn kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I guess I don't think you'd get this now, and I think even 50 Shades of Grey, I think we talked about it in our previous episodes, we never found that particularly tittillating. I feel like that's probably aimed at your middle-aged woman kind of crowd.
It's the female gaze, I think, in that film, isn't it? So, whereas this is tits.
Which is why I don't think it can work as a satire.
There's so many tits in this film.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, look, tits.
Can we talk a bit about the rape scene? Because for the most part, I think nothing really happens story-wise in this. She gets into conflict with some characters. We mentioned Glenn Plummer and Kyle MacLachlan, but she seems very forgiving. Even the woman who she pushes down the stairs, at the end, they're kind of on good enough terms. No conflict really sustains.
She's like, well, actually, I really wanted to get pushed down the stairs, so I'm kind of glad you did it.
I couldn't believe how that went. But this rape scene is about as much, something happening as it gets in this film.
Totally comes out of nowhere.
Well, it comes out of nowhere, but it feels like, okay, is this meant as the culmination of this debaucherous lifestyle to kind of justify the film and be like...
But no, it happens to the one character in the film who doesn't have a debaucherous
exactly.
lifestyle.
That's what I was leading to.
It's a sort of karmic punishment.
In order for that to work, it should be happening to our protagonist. If you want to, if it's supposed to be making a point of some kind, and then frankly, the whole idea of using rape in a film to make a point is kind of iffy territory at the best of times. Victim blaming thing, it's just very. So as it stands, it is just kind of this nubbin that doesn't really seem to have any reason or rhyme or purpose beyond showing, look, it's not all sexy, there is a bit of bad.
Its purpose is to give our protagonist the impetus finally to kind of walk away from this world and seek a little bit of revenge as well on the way.
Yeah, they do a promising young woman scene, which was...
Yeah, she sort of gives a guy a bit of a kick in, and that's going to be it, really. We don't get any sense of consequence from that. really. She walks away.
Shall we wrap up? Do you have any more notes on Showgirls, or shall we do some more questions and then wrap up? What do you think?
Should we put Showgirls to bed so we don't have to bring it up again?
Did you like Showgirls?
No. But I reckon I'm going to be the most positive of the lot of us.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I found this really watchable initially. It just outstayed its welcome. There was no plot to get into, and it's too long. What is it, 2 hours long, something like that? So, give me a sleek 80-minute version of this film with some actual story in it, otherwise told the same way, same cast, same style. I'd probably be all right with it.
So basically saying if they made it better, it would be better.
Let's say, I'm saying swap the script out for a story, but everything else made the same level, same quality. That's the one element that kind of ruined it for me, really. I didn't hate it, and then I just grew to dislike it more and more as it went on, because, like I say, it outstayed its welcome. So I ended up dropping it all the way down to like a 4 out of 10 from my initial kind of maybe 6 out of 10 first impression. But yeah, 4 out of 10 for me.
Well, I think this film has nothing to offer. I think, there's no story, no characterization. Every character is annoying and hateable. So it was a very unpleasant thing to watch in general. And as an erotic thriller, which it clearly wants to be, it wasn't even any good at that. I didn't manage to get a wank out of it. And I tried. I gave it the old college try. Couldn't get anything going. But, nothing to offer here. I give it a 1 out of 10.
Wow.
I think these kinds of films are the hardest to put a rating on, because much like you, Sol, I was engaged with it throughout the whole thing. I couldn't stop watching it. It's not good, and I don't know if I was laughing enough to make the experience worthwhile, but there were definitely points where I was laughing out loud, and that's pretty good, because sometimes these kinds of films, when it's like, the so bad they're funny kind of thing, when you're watching them alone and it's, you not got alcohol or friends round or whatever, it can be a bit of a slog sometimes. But this I did kind of enjoy on some level, or it interested me, I guess. It's tough though, because I think it is just a bad film. Like, I don't think it works as a satire, and I think to say that it's a dark comedy or something like that is to just sort of excuse its badness, really.
Yeah, it's the Tommy Wiseau defense, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm torn. I'm probably gonna come down more on the side of it being a bad film and give it a 3 out of 10. Yeah, 3 out of 10.
Yeah. All right, what's the most famous person you've ever shagged?
Well, I don't think I really have anyone famous.
Calvin had to sign an NDA, so he's not going to talk about it.
This girl I slept with recently was telling me that she was at college with Daniel Kaluuya. That's about as close as I've got.
That's good. I did almost go on a date with someone who became a right-wing blogger, sort of hate-monger character. And that was interesting, because I didn't know anything about that.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Not far off. Yeah, but it quickly all went away when he was getting put through court for being too stupid, really, to understand that he was being used to funnel money through to prominent leave campaigns. Anyway, what about you, Sol?
I slept with one of the cast of Alex Garland's Devs, if you ever watched that, but not an impressive one. It was weird that, because she was in like a 5-star hotel in Manchester filming it. They were filming some stuff up here for some reason with like Nick Offerman and stuff, which is bizarre. And when I went into the hotel, part of me was kind of like, is this bullshit? Is she chatting shit about being in this Alex Garland thing? But then a guy came out in the lift when I was saying goodbye, and like, I forget what he was in now. I think he was in Rogue One. Like, he was an actor who I recognised. But no, it was very odd. Like, okay, I guess just in this 5-star hotel for sex. she was like, "You can order room service if you want. The production's paying." And I was like, "No, that's all right. Thank you."
Nice. That's a classy move. I like that.
Yeah, but I mean, she's not famous yet. I'll tell you what, I'm rooting for her to win an Oscar, because then. Well, Barney from our Discord wants to know what we think the best performance in a sex film is, either pornography or otherwise. Now, I think we can rule out Boogie Nights and stuff like that from the equation. I think he probably means, softcore 50 Shades of Grey type stuff through to actual porn.
Oh, okay. Huh. I'm not sure if I've seen all that much, to be honest.
I don't know if I've seen enough to...
Possibly Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. I know I've mentioned it a few times this podcast, but I just typed in erotic thrillers because I needed some more sort of examples of this. Dressed to Kill has come up, which is a film that I do quite like. Brian De Palma. Eyes Wide Shut, yeah.
Oh, does Eyes Wide Shut count?
Well, yeah, we did it as a Valentine's Day thing,
It
didn't
counts
we?
as an erotic thriller. Does it have any good performances in it?
Yeah, it's got some great acting in it. I'd probably go with the grumpy old man in that or something.
Fatal Attraction. Glenn Close is pretty good in that.
Ooh, you know what? James Spader in the car one.
Crash.
Yeah, he's pretty good in that, even though it's a weird film and I didn't particularly care for it.
What about you, Alan?
Actor.
I can't. I've been thinking here.
Tough question.
Trying to think of an example. I'm not coming up with anything, I'm afraid.
Actually, I'm going to change my answer to Ella Hughes.
Oh.
In, I don't know what the name of the film's called, but
Spunky Birthday.
But she really she does all these weird faces while she's getting fucked, really weird, rolling her eyes back in the back of her head, and I found it was like, that's a good performance right there. She mouths "I love you" to him at one point. I was like, oh god, she's really going for it. So gonna go with that one.
Any more questions, or shall we?
Well, Alan, we were discussing this recently. I can't remember if it made the edit or not. Our biggest age gaps that we've ever had. Calvin, what's the biggest age gap you've ever had with a sexual encounter?
It probably is 10 years. Oh, this is a bit creepy actually, because I was 16 and he was 26, so that's
That's a bit weird.
It's all right.
That's not cool. Yeah.
So you're all right.
Oh yes, no, that's true.
I was going to say, yeah, you're on the
too
side
young and
where
stupid to know better. Yeah, so that's probably.
Well, were you into it? Were you attracted to
Nah.
him?
Nah.
Oh, okay, no, that's not good then.
It was pure sort of oh, God, what am I doing? But my body wants me to do this thing, and yeah, I don't know. It was weird and creepy, and I only knew about this guy because, my first boyfriend in. Oh God, this is really perverted. Really,
it sounds like a great story. I'm really
the
excited.
guy. No, it's not very exciting. It's just sad, really, that someone was doing this. But my first boyfriend in high school, we were 15 when we started dating. We're in the same school year. And I turned 16 first because I was older. I was born in October, whereas he was born in August. After we'd broken up, he started seeing this other guy who was 26 while he was 15, which was a bit, yeah. But then I just, because I was young and stupid and thought oh, this is just what people do. And then when they broke up, sort of I can't even remember how I ended up chatting to that other guy, but it was, it was a bit messed up, really. And then I did keep in touch with the guy from high school, and we did talk about it years later, because I was like, that was a bit mental, wasn't it? And he was like, yeah, I found out later that he got in trouble with the police about these kinds of things and stuff. So it's oh, so he's just a full-on paedophile then, which
yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. Oh God, that's a dark note to end on. Maybe this is for an outtake show.
Well,
but much like Showgirls ends on a dark note.
Yeah. No, but then it ends on a funny comedy note where she crashes a car.
Yeah.
Do I need to tell that other story, Alan, that we'd mentioned?
we use that be a closer.
Yeah, it's not a very funny story, but it's a better note than. Was it?
I found it.
All right, maybe it'll be a good one then. It's definitely a better note than Calvin sleeping with a paedophile when he was barely legal. Did he drive a white van, Calvin?
No. I don't think he drove.
Did he have a drawer full of sweets?
No.
Okay.
Who's 16, not fucking 8.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not being lured into something. It was just it was like the onus was on him to not be sort of like messaging with like teenagers who
Yeah.
lied about their age to be on some of these sites anyway. But anyway,
Well, wait, Sol, you teased us a little story earlier about a terrible sexual experience you had. Although I don't think it got sexual, did it?
It wasn't really a sexual experience. It was
an
on the
attempt at
periphery
sexual
of.
experience.
Yeah, but it was just a terrible, like, I want to go home and I don't want to be here. And
But let's just set the scene here a little. You've just come out of a relationship. You're playing the field, and you're trying out new experiences. I guess you're trying to find new things because in your sex addiction, just a bit of sex isn't enough for you anymore.
yeah, but no, I was chatting with this trans lady, and she was, really attractive in the pictures. She comes down in a kimono to like let me.
Yeah, but
into
wait a
the-
minute. So when you were contacted or contacted each other in whatever way, was the invitation, hey, I'm free right now, come over, let's have a bit of fun, or
Yeah.
was it, hey, come over, I've got a few people around, we're having a party, let's have some fun?
No, it was like, come on over now, let's have some fun. This was probably 2-3 in the morning. I think I was already in bed, so I was like, all right. And I think I said like, do you want to just get a drink at some like another time? Because I was like, well, she's very attractive. I'll do this properly. I don't need to just. And she was like, no, it's like now or never, basically. And I was like, oh, all right.
How are you with that, Calvin? Could you go at that sort of short notice? I need a couple of days warning if I'm gonna.
I need a few days warning for anything. I'm not very impulsive about anything. So.
Yeah.
Well, I live in the city centre now. It's like a 10-minute walk from my flat. It's not like that big an ask, but I had to get dressed and leave. Yeah, I mean, basically, I get there. She's in a kimono. Immediately, like, sort of comes in for a hug, and it's like, oh, a bit of 5 o'clock shadow there. And that alone, I was sort of like, oh god, don't know about this. But then we're in the lift going up at this point, and she sort of goes like, so. Oh, how did she word it? She said something to the effect of like, "Oh, do you like what you see?" Then and I was sort of like, "Oh yeah, great." And then she sort of said, "Oh, do you like that?" And she sort of glanced down, and her like massive knob was just out with a like hand kind of waggling it, and I was like, "Oh god."
You don't want to start on a big one.
Well, it was really big, but I did later realise, oh, she's wearing a cock ring, and. It wasn't like mine gets that big, but that's like peak performance. Do you know what I mean? I have to be really turned on. And I think, oh, is that what cock rings do? Would that make mine like that all the time? Anyway, and then we get there. And on the way up, she's like,
I just want to clarify something. So you're not attracted to men in any way, are you?
Not really.
I'm just saying a bit of stubble and a
why I'm
big
like,
cock
why-
isn't really going to do it for you, is it?
This is why I'm like, why are you even in this situation?
Tick a box. See what it's like. What?
I'm all on your side, so you want to sort of spread your wings a little bit and try, but if you're not attracted to a particular,
I don't have a
thing.
problem with the penis. I'm not attracted to masculinity. I think so facial hair I don't like. 5 o'clock shadow and
Right.
but you put a penis on a very,
It's a
feminine
penis
body. I think I'm okay with it. I don't know. I've
well,
not
you're trying to
tried it
find.
yet.
This is what you're trying to find out, right? This was your chance to
that's my point.
see what it was. Yeah.
So
Experiment.
and she mentioned on the way up as well, like, oh, there's a couple of guys over. Is that all right? And I was sort of like, oh, right.
What?
Well,
Well, there's a bit of a weird thing to throw at someone in the lift on the way up to the room. That's a big difference.
well, she was like partying, which is the thing, isn't it? I think gay people like party, don't they? It means they stay up all night taking
Calvin?
drugs.
I can't say that I'm
Is that a
one
gay
of those
thing
kinds
to
of.
You must know people who do that. They just stay up all night doing coke and poppers and listening to Britney Spears playlists.
No, that's never.
That's
come
not
up
an
for
awful
me.
stereotype. Like, I think they were listening to Britney Spears.
No, it is an awful stereotype that you've just done there. Saul, but please
No, they were
continue.
listening. Well, it was specific because they were listening to Britney Spears, and I had to basically. I think there was like an assumption that I was also gay and therefore fine with it. So I get into this party
How do you think she came to that assumption?
because it was a gay app that I found her on.
For God's sake.
That might have been a bit of a clue.
Yeah. Well, if you know a better way to find a trans woman, then please do let me know.
Look, I'm not.
Although I
I'm
did
not,
match with one on Tinder last night, and I didn't know she was trans. She just told me out of the blue. I was like, oh, okay,
But
interesting.
I'm not. Yeah, but if you're on there and you're looking specifically for that, in fact, do you see that on Grindr? I don't know if you
that's
ever.
what I mean. On Grindr, you can filter trans.
Exactly,
that's
and
what it's for, isn't it?
you'll see people on there who are just like, I'm only looking for trans women, no men. Which I guess is what you putting on there. But
I don't have a profile on it, for God's sake. That's unnecessary. Look, you get enough unsolicited dick pics on there with a blank profile. I do not need to put a picture of my fucking sexy face up. I would be swimming in pictures of men gargling cum and stuff.
Do you get that?
I feel bad for
so-
women. Is that what they get? Because it is just... Anyway,
So
Hang
you
on,
arrive
actually, Calvin, what are your experiences? Do you get when you were a younger single man, obviously? Did you get drowned in unsolicited cock pics?
Funnily enough, I don't think it happens as much to... Well, it didn't happen to me as much anyway, as I guess maybe some people, but I have more straight women friends who it happens to more. And I'm sure it does happen, but it's more of a sign of lack of intelligence more than anything else, I think, or just because obviously anyone with half a brain knows that they're not just going to send their picture of their cock to someone, and that's going to be like, ooh.
I think on Grindr, there's a lot of things on there where it is just like, hey, this is a hookup
That's true.
app. Let's just
Yeah.
what you got down there. Oh yeah, nice. I'll come over.
Yeah, that's very true.
I don't know. It doesn't bother me if someone sends me a picture of their cock. I don't care.
it's more the cum pictures. I don't like cum.
Well, that's it. I don't know if I've seen that many in the way of cum pictures. That was what.
But I must say, it's like, I don't, even if I wanted to, like, I'd need to see their face. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to go, ooh, nice cock, and then...
Oh, you see, I think that's where we differ, because I'm not interested in the face. I'm not interested in that. I'm only really interested in one thing.
Yeah, I have a story about that as well, actually, but I'm going to save it for a future episode because we're running quite long.
Get on with this story.
Yeah, that's not even an app story, the nice cock story, but yeah, that's titillate people, leave them hanging for next Valentine's Day. So yeah, I get up there and there's two gay guys in the pants. One is he tells me he's a vegan about 100 times while I'm there. So let's paint a picture. He's vegan, heavily tattooed, very muscular.
Dreadlocks.
I'm gonna guess drinks a lot of craft IPA, kind of, your gay hipster, like hipster beard.
It sounds awful.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably conventionally attractive, but I do know my radar on these things is way off. The other one was a lot more like, oh God, was he bald? No, he wasn't bald. He was a bit older, but shorter hair. But he was just very like, oh, hello, you're out. He was that kind of guy. Whereas the other guy was like, hey, nice to meet you.
What an odd bunch of people.
Yeah.
What sort of people are up at 3:00 in the morning and want to do some coke?
Doing lines, yeah. So the really camp one was kind of dancing around with a tray, laying out lines and stuff. The other one was really interested, like having a chat. And like immediately I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want any, like, there's these two guys here. I don't even like the trans one. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have sex and they're watching? I'm not in the mood for that. Because what if one of them starts trying to touch me up or something where it was just...
You'd accidentally backed yourself into a corner where everyone thought you were gay.
Yeah. And so they were like, about three
By
times...
meeting up with someone you met on a gay dating app to go over
just because
to
you
the
said
gay
you were
sex
gay,
party.
doesn't mean you're gay.
Yeah.
Well, just because you're into the idea of a trans woman doesn't mean you're into not
Okay.
a trans woman. And also,
Yes, fair.
just because you're into one gay guy doesn't mean you're into all gay guys. You
Hey,
know?
look, I think
Yes,
that's out of order. Telling someone in the lift that there's other people there. That's weird. That's
Yeah, that is very odd.
I mean, I think she said she was partying or whatever, so I don't know.
Maybe, or is that
Word
implied?
codes I don't fucking know, but
Maybe
yeah,
is
whatever.
that some gay patois that we're not familiar with?
Well, I assumed partying means you're up all night doing coke and poppers. I'm
that's what it
basing
was.
that on this experience. Is that not? Anyway, there about 3 times the guy's like, "Oh, you should take your shoes off," and I was just like, "No, I might in a bit." And they offer me a drink, so I have this beer, Budweiser, and I'm like, okay, I will drink the beer, and then that will be a reasonable time to leave.
This is when he started texting me.
Yes, I think it was. Well, they kept going on their phones, and I don't know if this is normal gay behavior, but like they kept pulling up Grindr.
Calvin, do those gay people, they like their phones, do they?
And they do.
Every now and then the like trans one would sort of go like, "Here, you pick someone. Do you like them? What do you like? Do you like him?" To like message someone else to come over. They like wanted me to start, and the vegan hipster guy kept sort of being like, "So like, are you into like more feminine guys or like more masculine guys?" Like he was really interested.
You were like, feminine.
I did go straight away like, yeah, feminine. Do you know as well, actually, the first thing they said, like, genuinely,
You look like Keanu Reeves.
it was genuinely, it went, bloody hell. I mean, you must get it all the time, but he looks like Keanu Reeves, doesn't he? So,
Oh, God.
do get a lot of that these days.
How did you get out of this situation?
Well, I messaged Alan as like a I'll go on my phone and it'll look like I'm messaging someone, and also I don't know what to do. And so I was just like, Alan, help, what am I help?
I'm sure I was very helpful though.
Trans woman kept going up and like pressing herself up against the window every now and then, which was a bit weird. Have you seen Succession?
No.
Okay, never mind.
When you say
and then-
pressing herself against the window, what, in a sort of...
Yeah, just kind of pressing up, and I don't know if she was like, "Oh, if maybe they'll come up behind me or something." Like the vegan one kept sort of being like, "Oh, well, I'm really into you," to the trans woman, and like, "Oh God, I really like to fuck," and I was sort of like,
fuck
presumably everyone's come over in the same context that I have, and that was just kind of like come over and fuck. So how come now it's like descended into we're all having drinks and there's an expectation on me to kind of get...
It's 3 straight guys pretending to be
Naked.
gay.
Maybe it was. So anyway, I mean, it's not that interesting. I basically went like, finished my drink. Oh, I'm so tired. I shouldn't have come out at 4 a.m. You know what? I thought I'd get the energy when I was out, but I'm gonna have to go home. I'm so tired. Got work tomorrow. Oh, I've got work tomorrow as well. Oh yeah, well I'm not on coke, so it doesn't. I need sleep. So.
Did they seem disappointed?
Yes and no. They didn't seem surprised. They seemed very kind of like, yeah, this is normal. I mean, I don't know. I think they'd lost track of time. I think they were probably on enough things that I'd waited the appropriate 20 minutes for them to think, oh yeah,
He's been here a while.
Because it probably was 4 a.m. at this point, so they probably were just like up until the early hours, not knowing what's going on. And yeah, the trans one had to come down and like let me out, which was very awkward as well. And then there was an awkward hug, and she was, I think there was an expectation of like, oh well, we'll chat or whatever. And I was just like, yeah. So then I think I blocked her like when I got home because I was like, I can't deal with that.
Okay.
Not even ghosted her.
You need to be careful in these kinds of situations, Sol.
Why? Because she could have killed me.
Well, what if one of them had been a maniac? Yeah.
She might have been. Here we are, I found it. Help. I've gone round to a trans woman's flat because she looked really hot, but she's less good in person, and there's 2 gay guys sucking each other. Oh yeah, I forgot they were like...
Oh my God, you've blocked it out already.
Yeah, I know, I genuinely forgot about that. There's 2 gay guys sucking each other here, and I don't know how to leave without being rude. And I sent that at 2:42 on the 14th of October.
Oh, my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
He's celebrating.
Celebrating. And then I said, I'm going to give it till 3 and then say I'm too tired and I have to leave. And then the next message was, fuck, that was so awkward. Why do I do this shit? And you said, it's all life experience.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, like, we just mentioned there, Calvin. I've recently started sort of meeting up essentially with strangers. You know, people I've chatted to a little bit, but like people who then like, oh yeah, come round to my house and then like, you know, tie me up or something. It's like stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. Am I someone who comes across as being safe and trustworthy? Maybe because I don't know if I would let someone come to my house and do that.
I think less than I do.
Oh, right.
I think that's my superpower. I think I come across as a very like safe, trustworthy guy because I am. You know, I'm not going to kill anyone.
Well, so am I. I mean,
yeah, no, I think you're both pretty much on par here. Both. Well, Alan's got a friendlier face. I think that works in his favour.
All right, Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Oh God!
If you love someone, tell them on a first date. It's fine. Tell them even if you don't, but you just like them a lot.
But make sure you're using the appropriate hand gestures in either instance to make it perfectly clear to them whether or not you in fact mean it or whether you're
follow your bliss. Calvin, do you want to, last time it was be kind or whatever. That was your advice for the listeners. Have you got any more sex advice?
I think be. Well, no, actually, you know what? I feel like the theme of this episode has been about open-mindedness from a lot of, well, Soul's stories in particular. Well, Alan's stories as well. I think this is going to show we live in a much less binary world these days, and I think people should be open to that and less judgmental.
That's another thing on Grindr, actually. You get trans men, and it's like like sometimes they look more, you know, not to be dismissive of their gender, but sometimes it's if you're a straight man, it still kind of works. Do you know what I mean? Just a little tip.
Sort of undercut my whole thing about being open-minded. Yeah, that's fine too.
I'm not a bad person though. I'm not. I'm actually quite a good person.
Well, bye everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Love you all.